Welcome to The Disappearing Mind, a unique podcast helping you find clarity and support along your dementia journey. Now, join National Dementia Trainer and Coach Dawn Platt for an all-new episode.
Hello, and thank you for joining me on the podcast today. My name is Dawn Platt. I am a certified dementia practitioner, a national dementia trainer, and a dementia coach. Today on the podcast, I'm so glad that you could join me. Please take a moment and grab yourself a cup of coffee, a beverage, a pen or a pencil, and a notepad, and pull up your chair. We have a lot to unpack today on the podcast. The topic for today is navigating the emotional complexities of dementia care, understanding family dynamics and conflict. This is a topic that I seem to cover a lot from a lot of different angles. And I think that it's important. It's important to me personally. And I can tell you that throughout my geriatric career, working with families as well as dementia coaching, it's a topic that needs to be discussed more frequently than not. It's something that is going to be a little bit different for each member of the family, and perhaps a little bit different for each stage of dementia. So here's some of the things that we're going to be discussing today on the podcast. We're going to address the emotional challenges of caring for a loved one with dementia and how it affects family dynamics. So we want to understand the value and of compassionate care and the dynamics, really the interaction of the family. So some of the things we're going to talk about today are dementia in general and the impact it has on relationships, understanding the emotional roller coaster that one can experience when they have a loved one who has dementia, compassionate communication, and dealing with challenging behaviors. So all of these and more we're going to cover on the podcast today. So let's get into it. I think that one of the greatest topics that we can talk about, not only on the podcast platform, but in our support groups and in our not only family relationships, but group, whether it's support group relationships or if we're in discussions with friends who may be going through caring for a loved one or having a loved one who has dementia. This is a topic that I feel like needs major attention. And I feel this way both as a coach as well as a daughter, someone who understands this from a personal perspective. It's something I like to talk about, something I value. It's kind of one of the ways that I de-stress or I come up with solutions with my own caregiving strategies for my family member. Some of the content I talked about that we were going to discuss today is dementia and its impact on relationships. This is going to vary from person to person, depending on your role in the family, whether you're a direct caregiver or maybe you're the grandchild and your mom or dad is responsible for caregiving for a family member, a brother or sister, or a grandparent. These types of situations are a little bit different in the impact, but nevertheless, I think it's important to know and understand what dementia is and its impact that it can have on all kinds of relationships. We're going to talk about really the overview of dementia, some of the different types and common behavioral and cognitive changes that can occur. And I've talked about this before. We talk about Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, and multiple other types of dementia. But overall, dementia causes cognitive decline. And that means all the functions of the brain are going to be impacted from one degree to another at various stages, depending on what the diagnosis is for the individual, as well as how rapidly that they are progressing into the disease. So you have this relationship that perhaps it's a friendship or perhaps it's a parent. In my case, it's a parent, and you've known them for so long or all of your life, and you've set up this relationship with them as well as this group of expectations in that relationship. And all of a sudden, those things are changing for you. And I've seen it throughout my geriatric career, working with families. There are many stages of dementia. And just as you get adjusted to the stage you're in, there's a new stage or a new decline. And no matter what you've been told or even what you think, when that change comes, it can be very difficult to deal with. So we need to understand that dementia can cause an emotional roller coaster in the lives of family and friends and the person who has dementia. We want to explore a range of emotions that caregivers can experience. And these are hurt feelings, frustration, and even anger. Some of the personal stories that I have heard and I currently hear from clients or even friends that I know who've gone through similar emotions. You may be the oldest child in the family and the one who is making financial decisions or the one who is looked at to make decisions for your family member. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. People look to you for some of the answers, but if you don't know what's happening with the individual who has dementia, it can be a long road and it can have its ups and downs. And you can feel anything from victorious to a failure. And I see that in families. I think that different family members may have higher expectations or put expectations on you, or maybe you're just an overachiever or someone who wants to perform and feel like you're doing the right thing. This kind of behavior can really cause us to go through this emotional roller coaster type feeling. For myself and several of my families that I work with, that I talk to, sometimes they value themselves or even their relationship as a spouse or a child based on how well the individual with dementia is performing or how well they're coping or how much behavior they are expressing. And simply, I need to tell you that dementia is a long journey and there are days that you're going to be up and you're going to do all the right things and they work beautifully. But then you're going to turn around a short time later and everything you try seems to be a disaster. And it's because we need to understand dementia and the progression. We're dealing with not a person here, but we're dealing with a disease. And in some cases, multiple diseases that manifest a lot of different behaviors. So understanding that there can be an emotional roller coaster is going to be really beneficial. Let's talk about some compassionate communication because I feel like, and I often say, being real, not only with yourself, but with others is going to be important. And discussing strategies for effective communication with someone who has dementia can be beneficial for you, even if they cannot really understand exactly what you're saying. We want to talk about expressing yourself, kind of being honest. I think that many of us are fixers and we want them to understand what's happening or why we're making decisions or why we're doing what we do. And oftentimes they just don't have that capability. I think that it helps to verbalize and discuss situations and the choices that you're making. We don't have to solve all the problems. I think that that would empower us to understand that this is dementia. This has no cure. We are very fortunate if we get excellent treatment and we're able to be stabilized in our lives and care for periods of time. But because it's a progressive disease and because it comes with progressive stages, we are going to have the highs and lows. I mean, we're just going to see changes, progressive changes in their abilities and their behavior. which can really impact us in different ways. Supporting siblings and the family unity is going to take a lot of conversations. And I feel like as families, we need to really delve in and come up with some strategies of emotional support for caregivers or those who are closer to the caregiving process. I'm talking to the brothers and sisters. I'm talking to the aunts and uncles. I'm talking to those who are close to the family member, but perhaps do not have the main responsibility of caregiving. We've got to ask them how they're doing. We've got to ask about the hardships, ask about how they're coping, ask about what you can do, offer to be that ear, that sounding board for a family member who is navigating this journey. I know that one of the things that I often feel like with families is that you don't respond to someone, you don't check up on them, you don't offer even emotional support because you don't know what to do. I just encourage you to maybe send a note or a text or a phone call, just say, I was just thinking about you. I just want to encourage you. I really value, I'm so happy that you're doing what you do. I just can't thank you enough. I probably don't express it enough of my gratitude for you being the main caregiver. I know it can't be easy, and I want you to know that I'm thinking about you and that I have this huge respect for you for what you're doing. That just goes a long way in supporting family unity, just the acknowledgement. If you can't express that verbally, send a card, send a note, send a flower. Just make good comments to other people about how grateful that you are for the person who's doing the direct care. This goes a long way in really helping with the dynamics that families can go through and navigating conflict that could and most probably will come up at some point in this journey. The other thing that I want to talk about discussing is the role of respite care and self-care. I think that maybe you're at the beginning of the journey and you don't see the need for respite care or taking that extra time to go to the club and play golf, taking the extra time to go get a pedicure or a manicure, taking the extra time to have lunch with a girlfriend or just go out and do whatever it is that you want to do. I cannot highlight the importance of self-care. And I'll circle back around to this in the podcast for caregivers and to discuss their needs with the family, even if it's their spouse. Discuss their needs. Often, and I've said this before, often the need for our self-care gets pushed aside because there's no time, because the person with dementia and your other family obligations or work obligations or household obligations just push that all out of the way. And there never seems to be time. So today, as we're talking about navigating the emotional complexity, I cannot tell you how important it is to find those little things to feel good about. The littlest things can really make a difference in your emotional stability. And it's very important that you start those early on and maintain those as much as possible, because in the end, it's going to really be beneficial to you, especially if you are the direct caregiver. There are also things that I want to talk about dealing with challenging behaviors. There's a variety of behaviors exhibited by individuals who have dementia. And when I talk about behaviors, I know that we often just think about bad behaviors, but let's just talk about different behaviors or inability to express things are also behaviors or lack of them. All of these things will have to be navigated at certain points. And that's why it's important to educate yourself about the particular type of dementia that someone has and what it may compel them to do or to be able to express. A lot of times when the one that you know or love was a very outgoing person or a very passionate person or a very take charge, independent person, just the whole change in dementia can really cause that part of the individual to just disappear. And that's difficult to cope with because now you are in a relationship or a friendship with somebody who's completely different than you have known them in the past. And it's a reality. And you start missing that piece of someone, that passion of someone. And it's kind of like when somebody is that way and they get mad at you or they're sick or something is happening. And for a period of time, that normal person, that your jovial person you're used to being around, isn't that way. You know something's wrong. But with dementia, as it progresses, those kinds of expressions and joyful behaviors and aggression, passion, whatever the case might be, that whole personality can simply disappear. Now you have this whole new dynamic that you're trying to navigate in a relationship that's been one way for so very long. And those are the things that we want to talk about, that we find important to talk about. What do you do in those cases? And I see this a lot, especially in married couples that have been married for years. The wife has never taken care of business, never taken the lead role, perhaps never even taken out the trash. And some women don't know how to manage finances because the husband has been that main person that did that. Now you have this added responsibility that can be trying in any relationship, let alone one on a dementia journey. So there are a lot of things that could change. And that's why I like to talk about these things is, what do I do with that? How do I navigate that? How do I fulfill that role? I think that first and foremost, we're always talking about this, but I think specifically counseling and therapy options are really important. And one of the things that I think are valuable for the person who's struggling in this emotional roller coaster arena is to have the validation of a professional who listens to you, maybe doesn't solve your problems, because we're not talking about solving your problems here. We're talking about validating how you feel, because if you're not validating how you feel, it's going to cause some complications in other areas of your life. It's like burying something that you're feeling, never talking about it. At some point, it comes out, and it usually comes out in a more disastrous kind of way. So I think when you're looking at therapy or counseling options, you need to really look at what it is that you need to talk about. And we always talk about the person, we talk about the disease, the course of the disease, we talk about the care, the best care options, we talk about the progression of the disease, but we don't always talk about how to deal with how a person is feeling. Now, when I say this, I like to talk about families as well. Maybe you're that person that's directly caregiving, you're having a hard time, you're losing yourself, you're not coping well, but what's the family around you reacting like? Let's just talk about grandchildren. So grandchildren know that you're taking care of your parent. They probably value you for that. Hopefully they think you're doing a good job, but they really are not close enough to understand the day-to-day dynamics that you're going through. So they're not going to be as likely to offer you an outlet for these gamut of emotions that you're feeling, the frustration, the guilt, the straight up anger, maybe even agitation, the loss that you may be feeling because your life is now consumed with caregiving and you've somehow lost yourself. So think about those kinds of things when you're looking at therapy, finding a therapist that will validate and help you funnel these emotions and come up with some suggestions of how you might help yourself in that manner. And that's what the podcast is really about, is the reality of where we are and what are some of the things that we can do on the journey that are going to help us as individuals, that are going to make us a better person and help us to cope with those deeper things that come along with the dementia journey. Community resources and support groups. I've talked about this constantly, and I will continue to do that. I cannot tell you enough how valuable a support group is. However, I want to clarify just a few things. The right support group for you is going to be one that there are people there that you can relate to. Perhaps similar circumstances, whether they're there now or have been there before. So, for instance, if you were a family member or someone going through early onset, you want to focus on an early onset support group. You are not going to want to look at what the future has, or you're not going to relate to someone who has been going through this journey for some time. Another aspect is if you are a daughter, a son who's younger, who has a family, the sandwich generation, you don't have the time to go to support groups like people who are retired. Your time and work and family are important. You're probably going to want to look at online support groups, perhaps that have people in them that are either in similar circumstances, have been in similar circumstances, or understand topics that are related to your relationship with the person who has dementia. This is going to bring value to you, I think, more than anything. And there's a variety of dementia support groups out there, from Lewy body support groups to Alzheimer's to multi-level mixed dementias, as well as age groups and platforms. You have live type support groups, you have virtual support groups, Facebook support groups. There's a variety of things. And I really encourage you to look at some of those platforms to see if they're going to be helpful to you. The other thing I think in navigating is celebrating moments of connection. As we go through the dementia journey, every day may not be that connecting moment. Share some heartwarming and positive stories and interactions to bring connections between family and the person, or you and the person. Things that emphasize things that have brought value or great moments in your life, great memories, whether that's travel or accomplishments. Celebrate moments of connection and continue to hold on and focus on those moments, because those are the things that are going to be lasting. They're going to be sustaining for you as you walk through the dementia journey. Our mission at the podcast, and my mission, is fostering compassion and understanding on the dementia journey. You're not alone in your feelings. And I always want to give that avenue, even though sometimes I think it can be perceived as negative. I want to give a platform that it's okay how you feel. I think the real part of it is what you do with how you feel. That's where we really have to make sure that you are able to navigate your emotions to make some solid decisions. It's not about just acknowledging it, but what are you going to do with it? How can you cope? And the podcast is really about that. We're here to let you know that your emotions are entirely valid and you're not alone in experiencing them. I experience them. I have experienced them. And throughout my geriatric career, I have met thousands of families who feel these emotions, and they're valid, and they need to be addressed, they need to be heard, and they need to be validated. So many others who are on this dementia journey share similar feelings and emotions. After all, we're all human, and we don't always do the right thing. Sometimes we make mistakes. And so we need to take a breath and allow ourselves to be human and understand that we can't navigate something that we don't know and understand. And that's the importance of listening to the podcast. It's the importance of therapeutic approaches. It's the importance of support groups. So our aim at the podcast is to educate, inform, and provide you with valuable insights to navigate the challenges that may arise along the path of dementia caregiving. Let's look at some additional ideas to focus on strategies and challenges that caregivers can choose to make if you think that this is valid for you. And this will help you cope with some of the challenges that you may be facing when someone you know and love has dementia. Mindfulness and coping techniques. This is one of the things that I think are really important. Let's explore some mindfulness practices, some stress reduction techniques, whether it's deep breathing, whether it's visual. There's all kinds of resources out there, both in your local market as well as online, that can teach you deep breathing or exercise, meditation, lots of practices that can really help you with coping techniques that I think are going to be beneficial. A lot of these strategies can help caregivers manage emotions and maintain well-being. The issue that we have when we're in the caregiving role and we're experiencing these emotions is that the more we focus on them, the more hopeless and the bigger that they seem to get. Coping techniques can be a way, and it can be simple and take a few minutes every day. Find something that you can do, whether it's a walk outside, whether it's relaxing music and meditation, whether it's singing, whatever that might be. Try some of these techniques to help you to really let go of some of the emotions that you're having. Creating a caregiving plan. It's important, I think, to develop a comprehensive caregiving plan that includes daily routines, medical care, and emotional support. When you're planning the routine, don't make it so strict that it can't change. Make it flexible and include the things that need to be done. And that includes coping strategies, managing emotions, and your well-being. Here's the thing that I want to say. When I talk about creating care plans, let's not have them so carved in stone that if you miss them or they have to change, that you're highly upset or it upsets the routines. Structure and routine are very important. However, so is flexibility. And perhaps you have caregivers coming into your home. Let me give you an example. If you have caregivers coming into your home and they come on Tuesdays and Fridays, and you have a nurse that comes, you have a social worker that comes, you have a caregiver that comes, and all of a sudden something comes up and they all want to come at the same time, or you need to do something on that particular day, it's important that you say, no, this is not going to work with my schedule today. Or perhaps your loved one was up all night and you just need rest. You don't want to talk to people. You don't want to cope. Say no. That schedule does not have to be carved in stone. If your loved one normally gets a bath and eats their lunch at a certain time, and for some reason they get up late, they don't want to take a bath, let it alone. It's not carved in stone. If they don't get their bath at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays and Fridays, it's not the end of the world. Perhaps we do a sponge bath. Perhaps we wait and do it in the afternoon. Perhaps they sleep through lunch and now you're off your routine. I think that our care planning needs to have the basis of what we want to do and have done, but it also needs to have a lot of flexibility. Let's make a general care plan and routines, but let's also be flexible about that and include emotional support in there. Perhaps you just need a break and you know you need a break, but tomorrow is the day that everybody visits. Cancel them. Tell them that they can't come that day and that they're going to have to pick a different schedule. And you don't even have to tell them why. You need to sometimes change things up to just do things differently to help you cope with some of the emotional roller coasters that can happen when you're a caregiver. Setting realistic expectations. Again, I cover this all the time, but setting expectations that are realistic for yourself and your loved one with dementia is extremely important. And here's why. It's not carved in stone. I say that a lot. I know that, but not everything is going to work out. Not everything on your to-do list is going to get done today. Nothing's going to happen if it's not done today. Move it till tomorrow. Move it till later in the week. Those expectations need to include things that are going to come up and things that are going to change. and being flexible and just flowing with it. Our day and our measurement is not by just the things that we accomplish. Check, check, check. Sometimes we just need to put the list down and take a breath and do nothing. And that's the difference. I think you need to allow yourself to be able to do that. Building the support network. We constantly talk about that, but who is that? Is that someone you talk to just so they can hear you? Is that, I don't know, listening to a podcast? Is it talking to a family member? Is it going to a ladies' event or a shopping trip? Or what is that support network? It doesn't always have to be someone helping you give care. It might be an old friend. It might be visiting. For me, it's visiting with my granddaughter, having time. What does that support network look like? And how can you access that? You need to think about for you and your loved one and for you alone so that you have balance in that kind of support. Some people that I coach will not even look or talk about the possibility that they need to take a break. That really leads to burnout. I want to caution you to have that balance of your own needs as well as the needs of the person who has dementia. Educating yourself about dementia. In this portion, I need you to know and understand the type of dementia that your loved one has. I encourage you to become as informed about specific information about the type of dementia your loved one has. What is it? What stage is it? Ask your doctor, ask the social worker, ask a dementia coach, what can I expect? Educate yourself so that you know and understand what you're dealing with here. And a lot of times there is things that come up that you don't even have to address. And so let me give you an example. When people progress in their dementia, there are things and realities that change for them, that are altered for them. And if you're used to having that relationship and dealing with every little item with them, sometimes when they're talking about things that you don't know or don't understand, just let it roll off. Don't try and address everything. Don't try and fix everything. Don't try and acknowledge everything. Some things are just part of their confusion. As long as they're in a good place, that they're safe and comfortable, I think that trying to dig into every action or everything they say can just be consuming. Knowing what's happening with them at this stage of dementia is really going to help you determine the important things and the not so important things. And not everything can be important, because if you approach everything like that, you're really going to burn out. I think that that is something that you should consider. Family conflicts can add to the situation. I think that you need to try and set up regular family meetings to just have general discussions, just have conversations about what's happening, what's going on. I know personally for me, when I talk to family or anyone who knows my loved one, they want to know how they're doing, what's going on. And sometimes, as general as that is, it can be difficult to answer. They're okay. They're doing fine. They're progressing. They're still confused. They're safe. They're eating well. Just think about maybe some generalities. Fostering an open and honest communication is going to be very validating for you as a caregiver, as well as the family. Don't dumb it down. Be honest about what's happening. Be honest about situations, obviously, depending on whether this is a friend or a close family member. What is happening? What are you coping with? These things are going to be important, just really to talk about it with someone. There are a number of things that I like to talk about, and one of those is self-compassion and forgiveness. You have got to have self-compassion. You're the caregiver. You're the one taking the lead in this. You have to care about yourself. You have to give yourself a break. You have to give yourself credit. Exploring the concept of self-compassion and forgiveness is going to be important. You are going to feel regret about their experiences. You may feel guilt. I think that these are common feelings that we have, but Understand this, that especially if your loved one is having some new behaviors that they haven't had in the past, personality changes, maybe they're a little argumentative or aggressive, or they have paranoia, or they're offering you accusations. Those things are difficult. They're confronting. And none of us like to feel those things, but at the end of the day, they don't remember what you remember. These behaviors, if you do not deal with them, can be scarring. They last. You get up the next day and remember the argument that you had last night. Most of the time, they're not going to remember anything about it. They are in a different place. And when you can really look at that head on, it's going to be very beneficial for you in coping with the situation. So, dementia can indeed have a profound effect on a person's ability to express love, general emotions, empathy. It can lead to them being self-centered or expressing negative behavior, these things that maybe you've never dealt with before. Understanding these changes is crucial for you and family members to provide appropriate support and maintain compassion. It's not easy to get in any argument, let alone an argument that is hurtful. But for the person with dementia, they again do not always retain what you retain. This can really impact our relationship with the very person that we love the most and that we want to care for. So, talking about these feelings with others and allowing some self-compassion is going to be very healing for you. Forgive yourself for the remark you made yesterday, or forgive yourself for how you're feeling today. It's not right. You deserve better. All of these things are very validating, even though it may not be your reality. I think allowing yourself to express those things is very healing. Let's just look at some of the ways that dementia can affect these aspects of the person that you know and love. So one of the things is loss of emotional expression. I have seen this over and over, especially in marriages, where you're losing the one you love, the one you've been married to, your best friend. I've seen it between parents and children, brothers and sisters. The loss of emotional expression is very common in dementia and will differ in different types of dementia as well as the stage of dementia your loved one is in. Particularly in the later stages, dementia can lead to reduction in emotional expression. People with dementia may struggle to convey love or affection, both verbally or through facial expressions. This can be challenging for any caregiver who is used to having emotional relationship with this individual. We know and we understand that with dementia, at some point, there can be difficulty recognizing loved ones, who you are. As dementia progresses, individuals may have difficulty recognizing or remembering loved ones. This can lead to a lack of emotional connection between you and your loved one and towards family and friends. They may not even recognize a son or a daughter, especially a spouse. They may not recognize their grandchildren, longtime friends. This can be very common. There's an emotional lability that happens when someone progresses in dementia as well, which means rapid and unpredictable changes in mood. They seem to lose the barometer of their moods or mood swings. And this is going to vary in individuals, but sometimes there's no rhyme nor reason in the way that they may be expressing themselves. So individuals with dementia may become upset, they can become agitated or even aggressive without any apparent reason, no notable reason that you can see, making it challenging to maintain positive emotional connections. Because typically, I think that it's our nature to respond to what's coming at us. And this is one of the hardest things I think that caregivers can go through. Many people who have dementia can become self-centered and self-focused. They've never been that way. And all of a sudden, you're dealing with this self-focused behavior. Individuals can become preoccupied with their needs and their experiences. They can focus on losing their keys or needing something, and they just won't get off of it. And it's a behavior that seems to exacerbate as we get further and further into dementia. And they don't necessarily consider the needs of you or the emotions of you or others. And this can be very harmful to relationships. It can lead to conflicts within the family, as well as leave you feeling very lonely with this individual. People who have dementia can lose total perspective and may struggle to see the bigger picture or consequences of their actions. And so we don't necessarily continue to involve them in big decisions. We may not necessarily want to tell them things too far in advance. Number one, they'll probably forget the discussion. And number two, if you make it so big, they may not be able to navigate the bigger picture. I think keeping things simplistic and giving simple reasoning for actions, especially when you get beyond the mid stages of dementia, is going to be very beneficial for your relationship with someone who can no longer understand or navigate problems like they used to. Because of the loss of perspective, individuals with dementia can exhibit impulsive and sometimes harmful behavior. This is going to vary, and I don't want you to be fearful of this, but because they're reacting and their world can be so different than the actual situation they're in, they're going to react. It's very important to not let this lead to misunderstandings and strained relationships. That loss of perspective, let me give you an example. A recent client was just telling me, the daughter was telling me that she had an argument with her mother, who has had dementia now about 4 to 5 years that she knows of. She's well into the latter stages of dementia. She's not in the late stages, but she's moving there. She often forgets where she is or even who the daughter is and doesn't necessarily relate. Recently, she lost her undergarments, she lost her shoes, and began to accuse the daughter of moving them or not focusing on them. She's very driving in her behavior. And this became very hard to deal with because the mother had actually moved all the items. And so the daughter couldn't find them, but the mom was placing blame. We see this a lot, and I'm sure that it was very painful, it was very hurtful, but the next day the mother really showed no signs of that ever happening. I just advised the daughter, let it go. Let it go. This is the dementia that you're dealing with. It is not the person or the individual. Finding coping mechanisms, good and compassionate conversation, letting things go. I mean, there's nothing that keeps you from saying, oh my goodness, this must be so upsetting. I really don't know. Let me help you look for them, even though you're clueless of where these things are. Negative or aggressive outbursts can be common. People with dementia struggle to understand the bigger picture. They also may exhibit negative behaviors because they misperceive what's being said or the situation, the environment they're in. And again, they may just be reacting to something that they perceive. All of these things, whether they're disruptive behavior, changes in social behavior, really can be impactful and much more straining than care itself. I want to provide an outlet, some resources, a platform, so that you can know and understand that this is something that is hard to cope with. You're not the only one to cope with it. And the quicker that you look at things that are going to help you cope with it, the better you're going to be in the long run. It's very important for caregivers and family members to remember that these changes in behavior are as a result of the disease. It is not a reflection of the person's true character in no way, fashion. Patience and understanding and appropriate support are essential in helping individuals with dementia and the entire family navigate these emotional challenges. And once you separate the person from the disease, it becomes a lot easier to be able to do that through seeking guidance from your healthcare professionals to support groups and counselors, finding a balance, boundaries that you set up, just having someone you can talk to about how you're feeling, about your anger. Focusing on dementia rather than the person is a way to maintain empathy and understanding. It's also a way to realize that you're dealing with something that's very challenging. You're doing the best that you can, and that you need to talk about how you're feeling no matter what that is. So, navigating these behavioral changes is critical for your health and your well-being. And when you do that and you acknowledge maybe that you lost it and become real with yourself and with others, it's okay. Nobody should judge you unless they've walked a mile in your moccasins. There are times, forgive yourself, look forward, take a breath, get some rest. I don't know, find something that you really enjoy doing, laugh, is something to that manner that's going to help you and support you. I hope that you find the podcast helpful to you. I think that you're not alone on this journey, and I want to provide you with resources that are real, that impact you where you live and are supportive to you and your family. At the end of the day, our goal is to give the best care that we can give for our loved one who has this horrible disease that is slowly taking them from us. However, I think that we can come up with ways to cope and really make a difference in their lives. So until next time, this is Dawn Platt. I hope that something that we've talked about today will help you or someone you know and love. Share the podcast, continue joining us on the podcast. We will be posting more resources and try and answer your questions. Until next time, make it a memorable day. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Disappearing Mind podcast. We hope it's helped you find clarity and support along your journey. Be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode, visit our website to suggest future topics, and share the podcast with friends and family.